and welcome to this discussion on your IP of future with Creative First. Our guest today is Sumira Roy. She's an independent filmmaker, a published poet, an entrepreneur, an advertising professional, and a guest lecturer with experience in telling stories in different formats. She's an award-winning creative director in advertising, working on brands such as Cadbury's, Asian Paints, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever, and De Beers Diamonds. Her film Last Day's Last Shot, about two characters in Banaras and their contrasting ideas on moksha, was one of 7 Asian films chosen by Doc Lipstick for a mentorship program. It went on to be invited for a premiere at the Museum of the Moving Image, New York. It also won the Best Medium-Length Film Award at the Scandinavian International Film Festival and had official selections at many international film festivals in Europe and Asia. Her interest in the female identity led to a sisterhood project about young girls in Germany. The project was awarded the prestigious Crossing Borders grant from the Literary Colloquium of Berlin and Robert Bosch Foundation. Sumira, welcome to this discussion.
Hi, thank you.
Sumira, could you please share with us your journey as a woman creator?
Well, luckily, when you start in advertising, that's one of the most women-friendly place to be, honestly. And in advertising, and when I started out, it was really women-friendly because there was not so many opportunities for women in other fields. So I had a lucky start. I had also very wonderful women bosses in the beginning of my career, and they really shaped my journey in advertising. And honestly, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but somehow I landed up in advertising, and so I said, okay, let me use advertising as a way of learning, and finally I knew I would end up where I am now today, and I'm just about to release my new film called Bhangar in Marathi and English. It's a feature film, and yeah. So I think women, I think they add a lot to storytelling. I think because we are more intuitive as a gender, we are more sensitive to issues and topics. We have a more, generally speaking, little more empathetic and compassionate, and so I think women add a wonderful layer and a wonderful approach to whether they're in advertising or whether they are, and also in advertising, of course, most of the consumers, as you know, 90% were women, right? So it helped to be a woman, a script writer, and a woman, telling advertising stories. And same in, I think I found in films as well, that women have nuances which sometimes, I don't want to be like feminist in any way, but yes, it is true that when we see how when all guys sit and talk and how all women sit and talk, it somehow gets deeper, a little more probing when women are talking versus when guys are talking about shares and other cars and stuff like that. So I do think we do have an advantage, and I think we should actually use that advantage and not try and be be equal like as a guy. I think we should really hone in those and use those as much as possible to make universal stories, but from a different perspective.
What are your views on the power of script? Can a good script be as commercially viable as a formula-based script?
I think now, whether you write a formula-based script or you write a franchisee script, or you write an art script, or you write a commercial script, I think the script itself now has become extremely powerful. I don't think, like in India, even celebrities or big production houses can guarantee you a great release and a successful film unless from the starting point, which is the script, that you have like something that is an amazing script, because I think there is no guarantee now. Like even a small film with a lovely script can do well, and a masala film which you think, oh, everything is nicely packed and emotion and drama and family and everything can bomb. So it just comes to tell you that today is the age of scripting, for sure, for sure.
What motivated you to become an independent filmmaker?
So the thing is, in advertising, you have a client brief, right? At the end of the day, so you can express yourself to a certain within. You're restricted in your expression. You can imagine, but you're still restricted with a brief, right? You've got a product and you have a brief. And I always wanted to explore my own expressions and subjects and people that interested me, and I could express and bring out, approach them with a view that interested me, which I never got a chance. I got wonderful chances of being in international productions, traveling a lot, seeing how other countries production houses work, how is the teams, the DOP cinematographers there versus ours, studios there, big studios there versus India. So that way I learned a lot. But finally, that little Kira in you, that you want to express something which you find, you discover a character or some subject that really absorbs you, and then you want to approach and make a film. That can only come this way, there's no other way actually. So that's why I started moving, and also therefore poetry, because poetry also is self-expression. Basically, after some time, it gets a little into a rut, advertising, because you're doing the same thing. So, and self-expression has to take a back seat in advertising. It's more about expressing your client's desire and his objective. So I was dabbled in my self-expression is all I can say, and that is what I'm bringing out now a lot more and more.
What are the challenges that independent filmmakers face?
See, I really think now independent filmmaker is just like the bottle has changed and the label remains the same, honestly. Independent cinema, just filmmaker doesn't really exist today, because post-COVID, uh, this whole OTT platform boom, studios platform boom, and now with AI and social media also, where the topics that are trending, like for instance, right now, Ukraine and Iranian women and Afghan women not having education, whatever's trending, which is, by the way, decided, what we think is trending is decided by AI and algorithms, not really by people anymore, are the ones that get picked up. You cannot, as an independent filmmaker, you cannot just you need a producer on board, or you need distribution, you need sales, you need we have to look, and indie filmmakers have to look westwards. We don't have any structure for independent filmmaking in the country at all. We have one institution called Doc Edge, but they also invite foreigners in for the pitching of your project. So that also is a Western view, right? So there are no Indian structure, no, considering that's what when I was at one pitch, foreigner told, and European said, I just don't understand why India doesn't encourage you guys, because in India, when I travel, I just turn the corner and there's a story. I mean, and you're a billion people and you have so much to see and so many stories to tell. But because we don't have any structure, we don't have any foundations, we have nobody looking at actually bringing up independent cinema in any way. You're running around looking for a producer, you're looking up to someone to represent, you're sending your films to Western countries to get grants, and they look at you differently. You don't look at you like an Indian, right? So I think indie is just a label now. I don't think. The bottle has very much changed, and I don't think there's anything called indie filmmaking anymore. Honestly speaking, from
But do
my
you
experience.
But do you think, there are so many online curated content platforms, like Z5, Sony Live, etc. Do you think that these platforms present opportunities for independent filmmakers?
They do, but they are also following the trends, also following what's doing well. So now everybody's found that India loves to watch detective series or what? So then they'll say, do you have a detective show? Do you have a thriller show? And then so therefore, so it's all about what's popularizing. And so I feel there is a lot of sameness, and therefore I think this is the time for art cinema to come back, because otherwise you're seeing the same thing being churned out. You're not seeing any new perspectives or new topics. Some obscure topics are very, very rare. Like, the octopus documentary on being the teacher is obscure and it did well, but that was just one, one in a million. Otherwise, you see the same thing. So I feel the world is big, but the channel of where you can enter, get a foot door as an independent filmmaker are very, very limited. Although
How
the
can such,
scope looks big. Yeah, the scope is huge.
how can such filmmakers compete on the world stage?
it's it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher by the day. Now what's happening is, earlier you would think that programmers, actually read your material and watched your film. I'm told now even programmers don't watch sometimes more than like 1 or 2 minutes and decide whether the script. And I'm also told before that you've got to have AI friendly words, because if you don't do your story or synopsis that a bot or an AI can pick up, something popular may not even get there. That's where we are, honestly, with AI. These are actual experiences which are slowly coming in and becoming, I mean, you feel they're subterranean, but individually you experience them. You know what I mean?
Sumira, you've won a lot of accolades and awards for the work that you've done. And, we understand you were an independent filmmaker then. Possibly you didn't have too many endorsements. What is your message for other filmmakers, trying to gain some recognition? Because as all of us would agree, recognition brings you more work, or, at least gives you a platform.
Yeah. I think that your only way now, I don't want to sound I'm very optimistic of the place, but I don't want to sound pessimistic. But the best way to get your film onto a world stage is to hunt for international producers to come on board, for international grants to give you the first sort of grants. So once they see, okay, this person has got this grant and this grant, they feel that you're a validated, uh, your project is validated. Validation nowadays is very important, because I'll tell you why. Because after digital came in, earlier it was 35 mm. Once digital came in, anyone and everyone are making films, right? So the film world has just gone boom to its end. So I guess they also need some kind of guideline. So one of the guidelines is some validation, or some producer they know, or some producer representing you. So it's getting tougher and tougher. I have realized that if you are staying true and you feel you have this beautiful story to tell, but if you don't have the channels to say that so and so represents me, or so and so is a co-producer, or so and so, or has given me this review, it's very tough. So I would think, first thing, when you think of a film, first just go and get funding as much as you can, grants, funding, or align a producer with you. That is the best way now to really get onto the world stage, honestly. There is no other way. And the
Sumira,
same holds for Indian films as well. Sorry to interrupt you, but the same holds for Indian films as well. I mean, if you want to be big in the Indian, you have to sort of align with a production house, or, you know, get a script writer who's famous or something like that. Yeah.
since you teach as well, and you are in touch with the young audience, the media professions today, if you can elaborate a little bit more on the process they should follow. You said that align with the international producer, or kind of search for funds. Could you give us some resources, names, etc., where they could possibly go on and try their luck?
Well, depending on, oh, there are a lot of categories, right? There is short fiction film, then there is feature fiction, then there is documentary, then there are short documentaries, then there are experimental films, which is like 5 minutes to win. So there are lots of categories. It's very easy if you know what you're doing to get. So the big ones are obviously like Sundance and IDFA, which is for documentaries, though, and Hot Dogs, Chicken and Eggs, movies that matter, many. But it depends on what you are making, because fiction is a little different. And so if you say documentary, feature documentary fundings or grants, you get the whole list. And also there is a film, uh, daily film TV. It comes every week. It tells you all the funds that are opening up. Docs Without Borders is another fund. So there are a lot of funds. It's very easy to find them. I mean, if you go to ChatGPT and just ask it to send it, it'll send you a whole list of all the funds. Funding is not the issue, but making sure that your project is put in the right way in which the vision statement and what they are looking for and what are the trends of that year and whether your subject and topic fits that trend somehow, or can you make it to seem like it fits one of the trends, then you have a bigger chance. So you have to be really careful about the words you use, about how you present it, and how you. So that's where for me advertising has been very useful, because you know how you're presenting to a client, right? So you know how to skew your presentation for someone else to for it to appeal to. So similarly, these grants, it's the same game. It's actually, there's no difference in the game, advertising and film. It's the same games you have to play to get people on board, to write your structure, to make it appealing, to use whatever you can to, for instance, I'll give you an example. My films are very sustainable. I have very less carbon footprint. So I put that in one of my points. And it's a very important point today. The second point I put, which also helps women, is I say I try and have as more women in my team than the other gender. So that's also sometimes very appealing. And if you have a woman programmer, say, "Oh, you're using more women team." I said, "Yeah, I always try to get more women in my team first, and if I can't find, then I look outwards." And the other thing is that I am, as a person, just very empathetic, and so my characters. Uh, Many people don't compensate. I not only compensate, but while I'm shooting, I gift them. That character in Banaras wanted a phone, so I bought him a phone, and his kids some. So I think, just being more so thankful that you have these wonderful characters who are willing to tell their story to you, and I think there should be some give and take in that. That for me, that's really important. Compensating. I mean, it's not a mandate, right? You do it just out of your goodwill. It's not a mandate. It should be a mandate, honestly. It isn't. Sustainability and less carbon footprint. There is no institution. IDFA used to have it, and then they dropped it. So I did actually submit my last project for the less carbon footprint, but I didn't get it because by that time they dropped the idea. But these are things that people should think about, especially because we use a lot of our, of resources making a film, right? So if you can be sustainable, why not?
I'm quite surprised with everybody talking about climate change, they would drop a category like that. But assuming some category like that
I
will.
Yeah, I think technically just couldn't figure out how to, there are different sort of, it's a template you have to follow, right? Some people have it abroad, but right now I think it's a very important issue, as is IP. I think IP, with AI coming in, bots, chat GPT coming in, I think in every art creative field, IP is critical. Really, it's not like something now that, oh, I'll see if I can, do. It's become very critical, crucial now, because we are at the mercy in many ways with machines who can sort of, like, what's happening in so many.
What could be the possible challenges in the areas of, intellectual property, largely copyright, which governs this industry?
I think what happens is most creative people, unless you have a production house you're working with or something, are more involved in the creative process, the edit and the sound and the film and submitting and this thing. And it just looks like one sort of legal thing that just your mind just cannot go through all that. There should be some simple sort of concise ways to figure out of steps, like if you buy a new phone and you go onto YouTube, there's some simple steps you can, how do I do this, how do I do that, and or somebody tells you, right? You want a new camera and you don't know how to use it, you go to YouTube, someone will tell you this is how you do it, this is how you do it. In IP needs to be simplified, needs maybe some how to YouTube videos or just simple steps, because going through all that, it's when you're making a film, you're in a different mind space, and then you're thinking of this legal and how to do it, and it seems so complicated, and so then it becomes in the back seat, and it shouldn't be in the back seat actually. It should be one of your film processes, getting grants, this, that, and also IP. That's how it should be, but it doesn't happen because it's too complicated for creative people, honestly.
For those viewers who are watching this conversation with Sumira, happy to share that Creative First has come up with 2 handbooks, and it's exactly what you said, Sumira, on the basics of IP. So we're going to make sure we put that at the end of this video. Sumira, you were talking.
That's great.
You were, discussing sustainable filming. Could you give us a little bit, could you take us through the steps? How can one really make a film with, ensuring zero carbon footprint?
Well, you can't ensure zero carbon for sure, because say you're traveling, or for instance, in Banaras, when I went to Banaras for my research, as well as when we went for the final shoot, except for one person who insisted on coming by plane, we all traveled by train. And then there are small things you can do. Like, for instance, we didn't have any plastic water bottles. Okay. So we would fill our water where we were staying. So once, and then we'd use that right through. We were shooting for 2 weeks. We used only those bottles. Then there are small things like you have these. So instead of everyone charging in their rooms, right, their phones, and you have to charge your camera. So I took one of these long ones and asked everyone, hey, when you want to charge your phone, when you want to charge the camera, just use one. So like electricity is not going in every room, and also for hard disk, instead of uploading one hard disk, if you upload all the hard disks at one go, there are small things you can do. Like we used cooler cups for tea. We didn't have paper cups that were there, so if you think sustainable, there are zillions of ways you can do it. Just sharing rooms. There are so many things. Uh, Even in camera and equipment, you can use smaller stuff. You can use that less takes less things. For instance, in this film, the new film Bhangar, which I made, I didn't use a single HMI. I said, okay, now we don't, it's a small scale, we don't really need a HMI. We can have some small lights, or we can have a bounce here and there, and we can do with it. So if you start thinking like that, there are many ways you can do it, many ways.
What is your message to young filmmakers, especially women aspiring to be in this business?
First of all, there are a lot of oriented festivals, okay, where women subjects, sensitive issues, etc. There are lots of grants and funds also, especially for women. And they have this every time you go to the fund, you will see there are certain countries where you get, for instance, even when you submit to festivals, India's on some big festivals, India is on the list where you can actually get a waiver fee, because submitting to festivals or even for grants, it's expensive, right? So you get a fee waive, or you get a 50% off. And women subjects, if they are trending, they are bound to be picked up. And my only thing is, why should the other gender make a film about women subjects, right? So, I mean, that is the first thing you could do, right? Find women subjects and make women films. And the other thing is to support women in the field. Take a young woman cinematographer, take a young location sound recordist woman, take a woman sound designer, woman editor. It's great fun to work together as women. I would really recommend that. And yeah, I mean, otherwise the game you play is the same, whether you're a man or a woman. The game and how to get to funds and how to get to festivals and how to get to this the same. But I think it's a very joyful experience when you work with women, and the eye is also different of a woman cinematographer. The gaze, what they call the gaze in film, is different. So it's I think we should just use it.
Well said. Thank you for such an enlightening conversation. I think many women out there are going to be inspired, and thank you for this, your time, most importantly.
Thank you, Loita, for a lovely interview.